Hi, folks. This is Mark Smith with Family Tree Counseling Associates. I wait until I get some kind of inspiration from the universe in order for me to communicate with you and make a video. And I've been inspired, so I have some things to share. The title of my video is somewhat controversial. The title is Narcissistic Abuse is Actually a Self-Inflicted Wound. And I know most of you probably don't view it that way. Most of you view it as, being abused by your narcissistic abuser, and you didn't see it coming, and they're an evil narcissist. And there's some, quite a bit of truth to that, but I just want to give you some perspective. All throughout my making of these videos, I've just basically shared my own journey, and 3 years back, April 26, so we're getting into late August. So it's about 3.5 years in, and each year that ticks by, each month that ticks by, I learn more. Now, the narcissistic abuse, what I'm talking about here is, I'll call it adult onset narcissistic abuse. There's adult onset diabetes. So this is adult onset narcissistic abuse, the type of narcissistic abuse that you'd get in a relationship, not your parents. Your childhood narcissistic abuse, of course, was not a self-inflicted wound. It was a wound inflicted by your parents or other adults who harmed you and abused you. This video is primarily for us folks who are 50 years and older. I know a lot of my viewers are in their 20s and 30s and 40s, and some of you folks in your 40s will get it, but most of you folks in your 20s probably won't get it. I am 59 years old. It sounds young to me, but it's getting pretty close to the big 60. What I've known is once you reach a major goal in your life, you sort of get to a plateau, and you can look back and you can reflect upon who you are and where you've been and what you've been struggling with and what you've learned. And I have reached such a goal and such a plateau recently, and I've had a chance to reflect upon this whole process of narcissistic abuse. The goals that I reached was in reorganizing my life out of shattering. I sold my home. I got rid of a lot of stuff. I got remarried. I moved to South Carolina and bought a home there. We bought a condo here in Indianapolis, and here recently in the past 6 weeks we've moved our office, and we've settled into a lovely new office where I'm at even as we speak. And I finally paid off the last payment of a huge lease that I was paying for the practice. So all of y'all know that narcissistic abuse just destroys and shreds your finances. It shreds your health. It shreds your relationships. It shreds your potential. It shreds a lot of things, your body. So I have come to the realization I thought that my narcissistic abuse began on April 26th of 2015 when I went through this horrific shattering, just complex PTSD it's just too horrific for words. You would need to watch all of my videos starting about May or June of 2015 and watch them all the way through to have a sense of how horrific it was. Or you could just refer to your own life, because I know many of you have been through this. But here's the insight. I suspect that you're like me. Uh, uh, we're all very much the same. We're people, we're brethren, we're family. We've all been through this experience together. And April 26th of 2015, my shattering, that was more of a culmination of me reenacting themes from my childhood. And I've traced it back 10 years previous. Back in, uh, uh, actually, we'll go all the way back to 2003. So 15 years ago, I was happily married to a beautiful woman, and it's such a good woman. Doesn't have a narcissistic bone in her body, more of a codependent, but just a giving, solid, caring, beautiful woman. I lived in a mansion, really. It's not a mansion by some people's standards, but it sort of was by mine. It was a $420,000 home in a beautiful Carmel, Indiana neighborhood. Carmel's been voted the best place to live in the country 3 or 4 different times. Had a beautiful swimming pool and hot tub in the backyard, and my kids were all at home, and they were thriving and gorgeous and wonderful, and people would look from a distance and think, hey, that Mark Smith really has his stuff together. My practice was thriving. I probably had approximately 10 or 11 associates working for me. I was making a lot of money. I was writing ebooks that I was selling. And I had time to, twice a week, I had a beautiful writing studio in Broad Ripple, sort of an artist community on the north side of Indianapolis. And I would get on my new Harley Davidson and ride down to my art studio on the river and write my books. And my life couldn't have been more perfect. But whatever unresolved issues that you had from your childhood, if you're not working on them in your marriage and reenacting them in your marriage, which was the case with me because I married somebody who was the opposite of my mother, then you're going to, in midlife, go through a crisis. I hate calling it a midlife crisis. I hate that term. It just doesn't do justice what happens. I began to be addicted, drawn like a fire is, like a moth is to a fire, to women who were like my mother. And uh, uh, it was an all consuming addiction. I call it relationship addiction, but really what it was um, uh, reenacting my relationship with my narcissistic mother. So, what's the unvarnished truth about your background? Um, when did you really go off the rails? You didn't go off the rails when you were shattered. There were signs. You were preparing yourself to be shattered. You were recruiting a narcissist or several narcissists. Um, I went through a mini shattering back in about 2007. and it was a foretelling of what was to come. Um, what's the truth about your childhood? What's the truth about you and any addiction that you might have? What's the truth about how your childhood issues and how your narcissistic abuse has affected your work, your friends, your body, your money? The price of healing your childhood wounds is immense. And that's what Mother Nature will do. If you don't marry it, you will find a way to reenact it. And if you went through something horrific in your childhood, you will go through something horrific in your adulthood. You know, we spend a great deal of emotional energy uh, as we're leading up to a shattering, denying who we were. I had no clue who I was in 2003. I thought that I had resolved most of my issues, that I was super blessed, that there was no trouble on the horizon, that I was going to be married the rest of my life to this good woman, uh, and that the practice was going to continue to thrive and blow up, and I was going to live happily ever after. That's not how it turned out. That's not how it turned out. A lot of good things have happened, and I've been blessed in a lot of ways, but a lot of bad things have happened. Sometimes I'm working with somebody in therapy, and I present to them, my job is to do a family tree and to present them the truth about who they are, where they came from, why they married who they married. And I do so with enthusiasm and passion and skill. And sometimes they, in so many words, tell me I ain't ready for the truth. You know, Jack Nicholson's famous line in A Few Good Men, you can't handle the truth. And when people tell me that, I'm okay with it. Because if you're not ready for the truth, you're just not ready for the truth. It'll find you, it'll hunt you down like, I don't know, like a hound dog, and it will find you eventually. So think about ways in which you might have been addictive or codependent or overly naive or overly trusting or unaware of your unresolved childhood issues, that set you up for what was going to happen. So I had a series of primarily emotional connections or emotional affairs with some of them were good people and my teachers in life. Some of them were just, you know, narcissistic people who were also my teachers in life. But it caused me my marriage, and it started to wreak havoc upon my finances. And everybody started looking at Mark Smith and saying maybe he doesn't have his stuff in order as we thought he did. And some of my associates dropped out when I went through a divorce. Not that that was a terrible thing. I frankly wouldn't hire a therapist who's never been through a divorce. I want somebody that's been through some grit and some grime and some stuff. But uh, there were signs of things that were to come. And all of us recruit narcissistic abusers. And we do so to give ourselves an opportunity to heal. And in my case, and I would make a case in your case, that what happens to us, it's fair. We contract somebody to deliver a service and they deliver. And it actually can provide you with a lot of good and a lot of blessing. But it's also unspeakably horrific. It's also just so damaging. And what I've learned is that complex PTSD, you don't get over it in 3.5 years. Some of these videos where people say you can completely heal, and they're making videos from opulent surroundings, and they're smiling and they're telling you that their shit don't stink and that they're so fucking happy. Run. That is a lie. That is not the truth. Um, in order to heal from complex PTSD, it's a lifelong process like diabetes. And each one of these major moves I mentioned was hard on me. I grew up with chaos and I don't like chaos. So I didn't deal with the chaos of 3 moves very well. I was a control freak. And I lost sleep and I re injured myself each time. And I'm just now healing from the 3rd dose of moving. So, um, what I've done is, and I want to challenge you to do an activity. Um, when we're young and we're innocent and we're naive and we're deaf, dumb, blind, and stupid, we don't even know that our story could end as badly as what it has, right? When you're 22 and 23, 24 years old, and you get married and you're so in love, and you wouldn't know a narcissist from, the man in the moon. Could you have predicted that your life would turn out this way to this point? We can't go back and change the past. I wish I could. I wish I could take all that I know now and go back and re-enter 2003. And I would soak in that hot tub and I would swim in that pool and I would love those kids and I would love that good woman and I would not ravage my life with carnage that really was self-inflicted. So, but we can have impact upon the future and we can have impact upon the present. So I want you to spend some time and I want you to write down 3 lists. The first, and the reason I put it first, is that I want you to become aware that it's a I want you to write out what could be the worst case scenario for your life as you move forward. As you're 50 years old, 48 years old, 52 years old, 57 years old, or 59 years old, or 65 years old, or 75 years old, where are you going? Where are you headed? How's your life going to turn out? Is it going to get better? Is it going to stay the same? Or is it going to get worse? I assure you that all 3 are possibilities. There is nothing that's guaranteed. You can have the best case scenario, you can have the most likely scenario, or you can have the worst case scenario. But please, please, please be advised that the worst case scenario is a possibility. And I worked so hard on my recovery, but I got to tell you, folks, I can't guarantee you that the best case scenario is going to be the future that I write. I know that I'm not going to act out in relationship addiction. I know that for sure. I know that I'm going to do the very best I can to treat my complex PTSD. I know I'm not going to be moving anytime soon. So here's my worst case scenario list, and I've put a lot out there on these videos, and this is maybe one of the most out there of things that I've put in terms of putting your fears out there. But here's what can happen if you have complex PTSD and you don't treat it effectively and aggressively every day. What I've come to realize for myself is that I have to train like I'm training for the Olympics every day because I have the disability of complex PTSD and I have the disability of narcissistic abuse, and I have so many symptoms in my mind and my body. If I don't rigorously discipline myself and sleep well and eat right and do all the things that will make your PTSD get better, you can go down a very, very, very dark road. So for me, here's some things that are the worst case scenario. I thought of 20 things. I'm not saying that these are things or that are going to happen. I don't think any of them are going to happen, but they could. They could happen. Um, One is for all of us, we are at risk of dying an early death. I don't mean from suicide. I mean from stress. If you don't aggressively treat your complex PTSD, it will wear your body out. And I'm 59. I'd like to live till 85. I'd like to live till 90. But um, if I struggle with reoccurring symptoms, I may not make it to 70. I'm in danger of not, super thriving financially. I would like to rebuild my local practice here, but in order to do that, uh, you have to have a lot of focus. You have to have a lot of energy. You have to really go out and find good people. And I used to be great at that, but I'm at risk of having my issues from complex PTSD diminish my potential, diminish our practice. And all of you know that our practice reaches people from all around the world, and it's a very powerful, well-known practice. But locally, it's not as prominent as it once was, and that's what's the problem? Mark Smith's the problem. The fish stinks from the head down, an old Italian saying says. And so I'm at risk of uh, uh, gaining weight. Uh, when I went through my shattering, I lost 53 pounds. I've gained it all back and then some, because when you're under a lot of stress, at least me, there's a tendency sometimes to eat poorly and to not exercise enough. Um, I'm at danger of uh, if I don't have a lot to give to my children and to their children when they have them, and they haven't arrived yet, then if PTSD is killing me and kicking my ass, I'm at risk of not being a good parent and a good grandparent. Uh, One thing I know is in the long-term future, I'm gonna lose Mr. Polly. Mr. Polly's 10. He's sitting on the floor in here. I'm gonna lose my best, sweetest little angel buddy, my beagle, Mr. Polly. Um, I could never write another book. I could just continue to suffer greatly from complex PTSD. Folks, if you don't continue to do aggressive work and effective work on your complex PTSD, someday you could take your own life. Wouldn't that be a horrible ending to a life? You only got the one life in my belief system. And to end that way, that would just be the ultimate in getting your ass kicked in life. I could end up lonely and disconnected. I love the game of basketball, and I have to train to be able to play it in such a way that I don't scare off all the people who would get on a court with me. They're not too happy as 28-year-olds playing with a 59-year-old to begin with, but uh, without this discipline and drive and training that I speak of, I'm going to be fat and out of shape and unable to play basketball and easily injured. I could be isolated from the world. This disease gives you fuzzy brain, and that could develop into a form of dementia and Alzheimer's. I'm at great risk for that. Um, if you're lonely and disconnected, I went to a funeral recently of a man that had a lot of great things written in the obituary, but there were only 35 people at the funeral, you know. And then I know a man in Kokomo, Luigi Balella. He was just a simple tailor who sewed clothes, but hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people came to his funeral and his viewing because he was a simple man and a good man and a loving man. Um, I could be at risk at my kids being ashamed of me rather than proud of me. I could develop, you know, a recurring relationship addiction. I could bring damage to my practice. I could, suffer legal issues. Uh, the worst case scenario has happened to us already once, hasn't it, folks? Don't think it can't happen again. Don't think that just because you've read a lot of books on narcissistic abuse and been to a lot of therapy and done EMDR that you're insulated from bad shit happening to you. The worst case scenario can happen to you, but it doesn't have to happen. So here's the most likely scenario is I live maybe 16 more years instead of 30, and I'd get a little bit financially better. And I left out on the first list, even though Rinda and I are blessed, we could go through struggles and end up divorced. Absolutely. Anybody can. Anybody who thinks they're divorce proof hasn't lived very long. Most likely scenario, family tree will continue to be a blessing and be around. We have this beautiful new office. We have good people, good therapists. Most likely scenario is that I'll have moderate success in treating my PTSD symptoms, that I'll continue to play marginal and embarrassing basketball, that I might write one or two books that haven't been fully given enough energy and heart. So here's the best case scenario, and this could happen, and translate these words into your list, because nobody is guaranteed the best case scenario. Just because you've been through 1, 2, 3, 4 years of working hard on your narcissistic abuse and your complex PTSD, that you are guaranteed to thrive like a king on the earth. If you think that, you're fooling yourself and you're really in danger. So here's the best case scenario, and that is Rinda and I would build just a lovely interdependent relationship where she's not codependent and rescuing, and I pull up my big boy pants and I'm not so damaged. And I make her happy. And that I get to live till I'm 85, 26 more years, and I have good health and a clear mind, and I thrive financially, and I mentor some more young therapists for Family Tree, sort of the new generation of Family Tree. And I'm able to be connected and generous with my kids and my grandchildren. And I have great relief from complex PTSD. And I write like 20 more books and help millions of more people. And our YouTube channel goes from 4 million to 50 million. And I lose 40 pounds and I add muscle and I practice my shooting and I play solid basketball into my 60s. And I'm present on a deep supportive level for my kids and my grandchildren. And I have a consistent experience of joy and happiness and have a great deal of energy and have connection and friendship. And I have a funeral someday like the good man, the tailor Luigi Balella from Kokomo. So just giving y'all a shout out, giving you a warning. Train every day as if you were training for the Olympics. You have been through a train wreck, lit on fire and blown up into a billion pieces, and it'll take a lifetime of continued healing. And I wish you all the best case scenario. I at least wish you a good case scenario, but let's not be in denial that um, the worst case scenario is on the table. We've been through it. We've been through financial destruction. We've been through divorces. We've been through suicidal thoughts. We've been through weight gain and loss. We've been through going to every therapist we could find and reading every book that we can find. We've been through our worst nightmares times 10. And the future is yours to make. The future is yours to grab, but you got to be hungry to get better. And it's got to be something that you're on a mission for. Somebody that wins an Olympic gold medal, they didn't just win it because they were talented. They won it because they trained harder than everybody else. And we can thrive and be blessed more than the blown up, unshattered folks because we took it more seriously and we trained harder. So I'm wishing you a long life. I'm wishing you a blessed life. I'm wishing you freedom from the paths of narcissists. I'm wishing you a fruitful spirituality. I'm wishing you financial blessing, and I'm wishing you just thriving in every way possible. Thank you for watching today. I love you guys, and I wish you the very best. And I hope you take these words in the spirit that they were meant. Thank you for watching. God bless.